Sairam, good morning, dear children. So, today I am explaining to you the lesson The Strange Man's Arrival. This is class 5th, subject English. This is part 1 and chapter 2. So, before proceeding to the lesson, we will understand the meaning of strange, as the lesson name is The Strange Man's Arrival. The strange man. The strange means the unusual man, very difficult to understand him. So you should be ready with a book and a pen, and you have to write the meanings that I am going to repeat it twice or thrice. You just make a note in your book. Strange means unusual. Unusual man, very difficult to understand him. And arrival means coming. He comes, the strange man comes. So where do he come? Now we will see in the next when we proceed to the lesson. So now we will understand the introduction of the lesson. Now we will understand the introduction of the lesson. The Invisible Man is a novel written by the famous English fiction writer H. G. Wells. This is the story of a scientist who prepared a formula to make himself invisible. So now you have understood the meaning of strange man and arrival. So now we will understand the introduction of the lesson. The Invisible Man is a novel, or it's a story written by the famous English fiction writer H. G. Wells. The Invisible Man means the unable to be seen. Invisible means unable to be seen. So invisible, we can't see. So the Invisible Man is a novel, or it's a story written by the famous English fiction writer. So fiction means the story which is imaginary, that is not true stories. So this story is an imaginary story. This is not a true story. Fiction means imaginary, that is not true. That lesson or that story is written by H. G. Wells. And in this novel, which novel? The Invisible Man, there is a story of a scientist who prepared a formula to make himself invisible. So this is the story of a scientist. Scientist means a person who studies science. So this scientist prepared a formula to make himself invisible. So he prepared a formula in such a way that he is not seen by anyone. So I also will be very much curious. We all will be curious why he prepared such a formula. Now we will see. So he did so because he wanted to be able to do whatever he wanted, however wicked it might be. He wanted to have great power. So the scientist invented a formula such that he should be invisible. Why did he do that? Because he wanted to do whatever he wanted, because nobody will see him. So he wanted to do whatever he wanted, whether it is wicked. Wicked means evil. Whether he can do whatever he wanted, whether it is good or bad. And at the same time, he wanted to have great power. So why did the scientist invent such a formula? Because he wanted to do whatever he liked, whether it is good or bad, and at the same time he wanted to have great power. Understood? And he would be visible only if he wore clothes. So we could the people could see him only if he wore clothes. Wherever his body was uncovered, then people could see through him. They could see empty space. Whenever his body was uncovered, then the people could see only the empty space. They could not see him. So, when he covered his clothes, he could be visible to the people. But whenever his body was uncovered, then they could not see him. They could see only the empty space. And when he wanted to be with people, he bandaged his face, wore a hat, gloves, and scarf. He wore a false nose and whiskers. So, whenever he wanted to be with people, whenever he wanted or whenever he wished to be with people, then what he used to do, he used to completely bandage his face or completely cover his face. Not even an inch of his face could be seen by the people. And he used to wear a hat, he used to wear gloves and a scarf, and he used to wear a false nose, a duplicate nose, and a and whiskers. Whiskers means a mustache. The nose and the mustache were duplicate. He used to wear a duplicate nose and whiskers. And you are going to read the extract of the first chapter of the novel, which is about the arrival of the stranger in Iping. So now in this chapter we will understand or we will know the arrival of a stranger in Iping. Now the stranger arrives at Iping. So Iping is a village in England. This is a village in England. So a stranger arrives to the village which is in England. Now you have understood where the stranger came, and now we will understand after coming to Iping, so where did he arrive? So this is the explanation of the first paragraph. First, that was the introduction of the lesson. Now we are proceeding to the explanation of the paragraphs. So now this is the explanation of the first paragraph. Mr. and Mrs. Hall ran the inn coach and horses at Iping. One wintry day in February, a stranger came to this inn. He was wrapped up from head to feet, and his hat hid every inch of his face except the shiny tip of his nose. He was carrying a bag. He stamped and shook the snow off from himself. So, in Iping, Mr. and Mrs. Hall ran the inn. Ran the inn. Inn means it's a hotel or a restaurant where the drinks and food are supplied. So, especially for the travelers, it's like a hotel or a restaurant. So, the name of the hotel was Coach and Horses. So, the name of the restaurant was the Coach and Horses. So, they used to run a hotel in Iping, a small village in England. So, one wintry day, it was a wintry day, and that was in the month of February. A stranger came to this inn. So, the stranger came on a wintry day in the month of February to this inn, which was run by Mr. and Mrs. Hall in Iping. How was he? He was wrapped up from head to feet. So he has completely covered his body from head to feet, and his hat hid every inch of his face as he wore a very big hat that completely covered his face. Not even an inch of his face could be seen by the people. And he wore a duplicate or a false nose and whiskers. And he carried a bag with him. He stamped and shook the snow from himself. He stamped. Stamped means bring down heavily on the ground. So he kept his feet heavily on the ground and he shook the snow off from himself because it was wintry. There was snow. So when he came to the inn, he completely shook the snow from himself. So this is the picture of inn coach and horses run by Mr. and Mrs. Hall. Can you see the hotel or a restaurant that was run by Mr. and Mrs. Hall in Iping? Can you see? Then I think you have understood. So this is a story of a scientist who invented a formula that he could not be seen. And now I think you have understood that. Now we are just summarizing the whole video. So The Invisible Man is a novel written by the famous English fiction writer H.G. Wells. So I have told you The Invisible Man is a novel or a story written by the famous English fiction writer. Fiction means I have told you it is not true stories, they are imaginary stories. So this Invisible Man is the imaginary story, that is not a true story, that is written by H.G. Wells. And this is the story of a scientist who prepared a formula to make himself invisible, not seen, to make a formula that he should not be seen by any people. And why did he do so? He did so because he wanted to do whatever he wanted. As nobody can't see him, he can do whatever he wanted, whether it is good or bad. And also, he wanted to have great power. And he would be visible only if he wore clothes. So, when he wear the clothes, he would be visible to the people. But whenever his body was uncovered, then the people could not see him, they could see only his empty space. And when he wanted to be with people, he bandaged his face, wore a hat, gloves, and a scarf. So, when he wished to be with people or when he liked to be with people, he used to completely bandage his face or completely cover his face. He wore a hat, gloves, and a scarf, and he also wore a false nose and whiskers. And the first chapter of the novel, which is about the arrival of a stranger in Iping. So this chapter tells us about the arrival of the stranger in Iping, that is a village in England. Now I'm asking, I think you have understood the entire video. Now I am asking you some of the questions relating to this video. So you should be ready to answer all these questions. It will be very easy if you have understood this topic. Now the first question is, who is the writer of the famous English novel The Invisible Man? You have to write the name of the writer. Who is the writer of the famous English novel The Invisible Man? The second question is, Why did the scientist prepare a formula to make himself invisible? So, what was the purpose of the scientist? To prepare a formula to make himself invisible. Then, the third question is, what did the strange man do when he wanted to be with people? So, what did the strange man do when he wanted to be with people? And the fourth question is, where was the inn, coach, and horses? Who ran it? So, where was the inn? Means the restaurant. The coach and horse is the name of the restaurant. Where was it? And who ran that restaurant? When did the stranger come to the inn? So, when did the stranger came to Iping and he came to the inn? When did the stranger come to the inn? How was he dressed? So, you have to tell the description of the stranger when he arrived at Iping to the inn. So, I think you have understood this topic and and it is very easy for you to write the answers for the above questions. So thank you. Sai Ram.